Welcome to the Dudeology Show, where real dudes discuss awesome stuff, killer gear, and cool stories. We're your hosts, Brandon Mosley and Chris Gambino. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and all the socials at Dudeology Show.
Welcome to the Dudeology Show. Thanks for joining this evening. We've got some awesome stuff for you tonight. But before that, please take a moment to click on that subscribe button. It helps the Dudeology cause, and we greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. The mission here at Dudeology Show is to empower and encourage all dudes to get after it in the quest to become better friends, fathers, sons, husbands, members of society, and in doing so through taking personal responsibility of whatever situations we find ourselves in, will ultimately make our communities, families, companies, etc. better. So we like to refer to that as the movement. And one of those areas in all of our lives which can distract us from staying on our mission and staying part of that movement is money. And that's whether it's chasing too much of it, that's whether it's mismanaging it or not maybe harnessing its full potential. It can be a stumbling block if we don't get a good hold on it. So we're super excited today. Today we have Jeff Hartman, who comes to us with over 20 years in the financial services and financial planning sector. And he and his firm work with clients around the country and around the globe. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get started, quick question. You were assigned some homework. Did you listen to episode 4 with Dr. Danny?
I did.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Because
yes.
we could have ended it there,
Yeah.
and this could have been the shortest show in Dudeology history. So we're so glad to have you on, Jeff. We really want to know about the work you're doing and really kind of give us an opportunity to ask some questions. But before that, we had a discussion with Dr. Danny. We were talking about this overuse in sports, and in particularly kids' sports. And so we said, hey, I wonder if you took all the money. Let's say you had a kid that played travel baseball, and everyone, guys, we're pro sports at Dudeology. We are pro sports. We do believe there's a little craziness, the year-round thing, and you have.
Yes.
You have kids that are in
I know
sports.
well.
Are your daughters year-round soccer, right?
Yes, correct.
Right, yeah.
So let's say from the ages of 8 to 18, so a 10-year period, it's probably not uncommon to drop maybe, let's say, 5 to 10 grand at a sport, and that's hotels and meals and uniforms. Correct?
Agreed.
So we'll go high end. Let's say 10 grand. So 10 grand from 8 to 18, that's 100 grand. Now, tell me, if I took $100,000 from one of my kids who was 18 years old and just put it away and it just performed standard market, what would they have when they were 38, 40 years old? Let's say in 20 years.
So 20 years. All right. So one of the cool things that anyone can do is there's this thing called Rule of 72. Have you guys heard of Rule of 72?
I have maybe college econ class or something.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So you can take any rate of return and divide that into 72, and that'll give you the number of years that it takes for your money to double. So let's say, for example, that you want a 10% rate of return. You divide that into 72, and that tells you at a 10% rate of return, it's going to take you about 7.2 years for that money to return. So we said from age 20 to age 40, right, you had $100,000. So from age 20 to 27, your 100's now worth 200. From 27 to 34, your 200 is now worth 400. And from 34 to, anybody do the math here?
Yeah. 30,
41.
Yeah, 41.
Excellent.
41.
Excellent.
Like that. Yeah,
Excellent.
state school education too.
800,000.
Okay.
Wow.
So, hypothetically, and I have 3 kids, but if I went to any one of them and said, I'll give you 800 grand, I'll give you almost, it will give you $750,000 if you don't do that travel sport. I mean, what do you think the answer would be?
I think they take it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you caveat it that they don't get it till they're 40 years old, but that's probably good. That's probably good.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you got to look at the whole social media aspect now too, right? The kids are looking at what everyone else is doing in social media. What do they have? What don't I have? What are they doing? And so, where us sitting at this table, we would have been, we're going to play travel sports. Forget the money. Now, kids might be more apt to go, give me the money.
Yeah, a little more too. And I just think one of the things that we can just empower our children with is really teaching them to be responsible. with money, and we've all had. I've made my fair share of mistakes with money and like anything, and like you want to kind of not have your kids make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Let them make their own mistakes. Let them make their own new mistakes.
Absolutely.
Find their own to make.
Yeah. I think, just thinking about the Dudeology cause, being a little vulnerable here, right? As Brandon said, we've all made rookie mistakes, if you will, right? And it's kind of the way we were raised is kind of how we ended up as adults, right? Putting too much on the credit card, getting in over your head in a house that's too big that you can't afford. And we've all been there, right? So learning some of those lessons the hard way, I think the cool part now that I've been able to teach my kids is, hey, you make a little money, you're going to give some of that, you're going to save some of that, and hey, you can spend some of that too, right? But you always got to be investing in them and teaching them, right? And just a quick story, with the COVID quarantine stuff going on, I told my daughter, I said, hey, why don't you start a little business? You like making these little bracelets? It looks like Jeff's got one on right there.
Nice.
I said, hey, sell them for $2 each. You got a little extra time on your hands. You're not going to school. We're doing a little virtual school. Man, she took to it. She's made $100. I mean, in a couple month period staying home, right? So it's pretty cool when you can kind of, let them loose on a project, and then they start seeing the results and what money can do for them. They can go buy their own stuff now, and they don't have to come ask me, and they feel a sense of pride and personal responsibility.
By the way, we need to open her a Roth IRA now that she's in business.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, because you don't have to claim that against your taxes.
That's right.
That's
right.
$100 falls under you.
Exactly.
It's cool to see, and my 16-year-old has been working, and he has expenses mainly tied around his vehicle. But it's really neat when you see your kids say no to things because it's their money. Like he's like, want to go out, and he realizes what that would cost, or wants to buy something, and he realizes what that cost, and says, I'm okay. They're making choices, and we all have to come to that place where we find out that we have to make these choices. 2020 has been insane, though, and I bet you your phone has been ringing off the hook this year.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that 2020 has been one of those years, guys, where unique, and obviously every time that there is something that causes the market to have a very adverse reaction and so forth, you can always say, well, we've never seen this before, and most of the time that's absolutely correct. But I think what was very unique about 2020 was that in the past, though things were going on economically, the market was, say, tumbling, we weren't really affected as far as our livelihoods go. So we were all still out working, we were all still engaged with our kids, and you really weren't paying attention to what the market was doing until maybe you got your monthly or quarterly statement, right?
Yeah.
This time, with the quarantine, we were all basically forced to be home with that giant TV on with just the news streaming. And for the first time, many people realize that there are actually channels out there that just focus on stocks going up and going down, and in this case, predominantly going down. And as you guys know, what is the media's main job is to basically put the fear into all of us.
Yeah.
So that was unique in that people were getting information from different, whether it's social media or from the news, and though everyone knew what was causing this adverse market, this downturn, everyone ultimately has that what I call that bottom, where they just feel it in the gut, and they just got to say, you know what, I just need some reassurance. And the beauty of that is that when I start getting those phone calls, without fail, that's usually when the market is about at the bottom. For whatever reason, when it finally starts hitting people to where they just almost can't stomach it, they can't sleep at night, you kind of go, okay, we're probably pretty close to the bottom. And for the most part, yes, you get a lot of calls, but I like to think that most people, and I think we'll talk a little bit about this, is, if we've done the proper planning in advance, hopefully the expectations have already been set that, you know what, we expect an upward trajectory. We hope to do well in the market. And we know over time in history the market does well.
Right.
But guess what? Along the way, there's going to be a lot of different bumps.
Yeah. We're in a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Right? And there's going to be, it's like climbing a mountain. You know, you're going to be some ups and downs. Ultimately, you're going to get to the summit, though, through those ups and downs.
No, absolutely.
And Jeff, you mentioned if they've taken the steps, right, or if someone has done the right things.
Right.
So let's say, and we'll do a hypothetical. I come to you and hey, my first real, quote unquote, real job, maybe out of college. What are you telling me to make sure I have kind of in place? What are the steps there? And then I may even hypothetical question, maybe if someone's a little bit behind on that. But let's start first. Hey, you caught me at the right time. I'm maybe I have a little bit of debt from some stuff in college. I just got my job and it gives me a 401k and some health insurance and all these other things. Jeff, what do I do?
Yeah, so, just like anything we do, guys, you're going to start with some type of plan. You're going to figure out, okay, here's where I am today. Where in the heck do I want to be at some point in the future? And is that short term? Is that intermediate? Is that long term? So when we're sitting down, we're going to just kind of uncover everything. We're going to take a look under the sheet, so to speak, to see exactly what's going on. It may look, and this is what's fascinating. Everyone looks like they got it together, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's, we're all doing well, man. We're driving nice cars, living in great houses. But then you peek under the covers and you're like, huh! Okay, I don't want to see all that because you got a lot of that stuff
the
going
house's
on.
foundation's got a crack in
Absolutely.
it, maybe some rot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you kind of want to start with that basic platform. So, really, guys, the key to me is to start with the plan, and then secondly, you kind of just want to take care of your basics. You mentioned a little bit of debt. And, I think everybody probably carries a little bit of debt, a little bit, at some point in their future. And obviously, some people carry a lot more debt. So I think it's real important that we maintain an expectation there that, okay, a little debt's okay, a lot of debt is not okay. And then we really want to, I tell you, the toughest thing, especially for married couples, is the budget. All right, I can't say enough about the budget. And if you're a newlywed, that really should be part of, the day before you get married. You got to sit down with that future spouse and sit through a budget, because the reality is that I may think of money in one sense, and Brandon, you may think of money in one sense, and Chris, you're going to think of money in one sense, and more importantly, how we're going to spend it. And so you now take two individuals from two different backgrounds and you put those together, and immediately we expect to just be able to just jive. This is how we're going to spend our money. This is how we're going to budget. And I say this all the time, and it's so true, that most couples will spend more time planning their trip to the Keys than they will figuring out where they're going to be in 10 years. And I know that all your listeners out there are probably shaking their heads. Yep, absolutely. Because let's face it, planning a trip to the Keys is much funner than sitting down and figuring out how much we're going to spend on groceries. This is how much the car is, and by the way, this is how much the insurance is.
Well, going back to your point about people sort of living outside their means until you really look under the sheets or look under the covers, you don't really know. You just see what everybody has, and you want it because there's the whole keeping up with the Joneses thing, right? And a lot of dudes fall into that trap. It's a lie, really, that they believe that I've got to have what the guy next door has. Or I got to have that new piece of gear even, right? Nothing wrong with having a new piece of gear, by the way. Yeah. It's one of our segments later.
Yeah, well, what we say about the gear, though, is you buy quality, and then it lasts you 10, 15, 20 years. So you don't have to worry about getting new crap all the time, right?
Yeah,
that's it.
And I think the key phrase here is delayed gratification, and those who can find that, having a plan for 10 years down the road and delaying a little bit of gratification today, not to say you can't go on that trip to the Keys, but, doing it within a budget, right? So why is having that budget conversation so darn hard?
Well, and again, I think it goes back to we're taking two different individuals with two different backgrounds. And so you may have the one spouse that was brought up a certain way, the other spouse who was brought up a certain way, and they were either taught that savings was important, and as a matter of fact, savings comes first, or they were taught we're going to spend, and we're going to have a whole bunch of fun doing it. So it becomes a challenge, and as you guys know that, not to get on a whole topic of marriage here, but that's one of the main reasons for stressful relationship, right?
Yeah, they finances,
Yeah.
kids, sex.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I could probably, I can't really name knockdown dragouts that I've had, with my wife. And we've always just, let's resolve it before it goes to court. But I would imagine that any of the friction, the majority of the friction, has probably been around something to do with money, and even the little thing, it probably has some undercurrent of resources. And I heard it kind of I guess stated a really cool way. It's like, listen, if you got $10, you give one away, you save one, and for the other 8, you can do whatever you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's house, if you want to go big on the house, cool. But here's the deal: you can't spend more than $10.
Right.
You can't spend 11 or 12. And to me, that sounds like simple. Spend less than you make. Like live on be a percentage liver. Live on 90% of your income, or 80, or whatever that means for you. But what is that? Are we that? Do we lack that much discipline that we just can't get that? You think?
Honestly, I don't think it's the discipline. I think it's the education. Okay, so we go through. Whether we get our undergraduate degree, a master's degree, a doctorate, you think about it. What class did you take where someone sat you down and said, oh, by the way, you're going to be a very successful dude here in a few years. Here are the steps you need to take, not only for yourself, but for your family. Okay? So some guys will have the initiative and they'll go, you know what, I'm going to research this. And I'm going to figure out what's the best way to do this. Some guys will say, you know what, I'm going to get some help somewhere else where someone can guide me through this process. But generally what happens is life. Generally we get out of school, we get that job, we start making money. We haven't been used to making money. You get married, you start having kids, and what you thought you were going to and should have done 10 years ago, now you're 10 years into it. And you still haven't really taken that time. I'll tell you, most of the time when I see new clients, they're already well into their 30s, and some are into their 40s before they have actually decided to get serious.
Mm-hmm.
And let me share something with you guys that I think is important for everybody to understand. What we're talking about today doesn't matter if you're an hourly wage employee. It doesn't matter if you're in a mid-level, C-level career, if you're a doctor, an attorney, right? What happens to everyone is we always spend to our limit. So I think it's real easy sometimes for us to go, well, yeah, that guy's, he does this, so he's obviously making a lot of money, so he's obviously going to have more to put away. Well, let me tell you here, that's not the case. Because whether someone makes $100 or they make $200, they're spending.
So it's a percentage because they're still spending the same percentage.
Absolutely.
So they're just doing it at a higher level. They're just doing it at a higher level.
Don't think because someone makes 10 times what you think they may make that they're just saving all that money.
Yeah.
I promise you.
Absolutely.
They're just buying more toys.
More toys and more stuff.
Bigger houses.
Take on more responsibility. So what's the biggest thing that people come in and say, hey, Jeff, I want to retire. I need you to get me. Is retirement kind of the big thing that people want?
I think so.
Want to talk about?
I think that generally speaking, by the time someone has come to me and we're just chatting, they are now bringing to me what I refer to as their junk drawer. Okay, so you guys are familiar. I think we all have it in the kitchen or somewhere in the house where you open that drawer.
Some of us have a couple of those.
Absolutely, and there's just stuff, and most of the time it's rolling out. It's a whole bunch of stuff. Now, you're probably going to use it. You may need it at some point, but it's a whole bunch of stuff. And that's kind of what happens is that once people actually start getting serious, they bring me their junk drawer. So they've probably done a little savings in their 401k. Maybe they have an IRA. Maybe they have 401ks from 2 or 3 jobs ago. But nothing is really kind of working towards an ultimate goal. All right. So what we have to determine is, okay, let's first figure out where everything is. Let's figure out where you are. And then, the first question is, when do you want to retire? Or as I like to say is, when do you want to make a decision to hang up the keys? Mm-hmm. So you may say, let's set the goal at, I want to retire at 65. But do you want to be able to make that decision at age 60? All right. So from that point forward, then what we have to figure out really then is, okay, do you have the means to get from point A to point B? I tell people all the time, I can tell you how to get from point A to point B. I just don't know if you financially can get from point A to point B. And I think then the second piece to that is the tough part is, realizing how much you actually still need in retirement. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people just assume that you're going to retire, you don't need a lot of money to live on. Well, I can tell you guys, if I'm able to retire at age 65, I'm living life just like I am right now.
Amen, brother. And I remember several years ago, someone's like, count on 70%. And I was like, why would I count on 70%? I don't plan on living less. In fact, when I retire, I'm probably going to want to be generous to my family. If my children are having children yet, I'm going to want to be the one to bless them and say, hey, I'll cover the family reunion or the trip to wherever, or I want to go to Australia for a month. So when I see that, why would I do that with less? Now, is that still kind of a thing? Like, you want to retire with 70% of your pre-retirement income, or?
So, Brandon, I mean, the reality is that we've got to set it at some number. So you got to set the goal at some point. And I think that unless you truly find someone who had it ingrained very early on that from their first job, you start saving into your 401k at least to max out the match. If the company's offering a match, and they get used to saving at an early on. The reality is that once someone has gotten serious about it, it's really tough conversations to say, hey, I don't know that 70% is going to do it. So maybe we need to either push retirement off a little bit further, or maybe we need to shoot for a little better return on your investments. But I think 70% has always been kind of that number that, okay, if we can get to 70, it's possible. Mm-hmm. It's possible to still be able to live that life as you were.
Well, maybe if you own property, you've paid it off. So maybe there's that reduction.
Some people downsizing their houses.
Downsize, and maybe there are some resources. I tell you what, when you look and do these little calculators, because sometimes they'll pop up.
Sure.
And you're like, oh, this is fun. Let's do this real quick. The killer, man, that always gets me is you got to think about healthcare costs when you're 65. Even if you're getting Medicare. Most people don't understand. Medicare is not free. You going to the doctor Medicare, right? I mean, you got to go to the hospital. That's covered, but that's a big chunk. A big chunk.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's only, as you guys know, it's only going to get worse. I mean, that is one thing that you can pretty much guarantee. Taxes are going to go up, and healthcare costs are going to continue to go up. And probably the first 10 years of my career, we never even really factored healthcare cost into looking at retirement analysis. Now, it's actually a very important part when you're considering someone's retirement and when they're going to retire.
Mm-hmm. And getting those hypotheticals, like, I don't know, like if something were to happen, do you want someone to come to your house and take care of you, or do you want to go to a place that not a lot of people get too jacked up and get jazzed up about going to like a home to.
Well, we just had Dr. Danny on, right? He works at Mayo, and that's the spot where I'd want to go. But that costs money, and it might not be part of that standard Medicare package, right? Yeah. Going back to the guy who comes to you in his late 30s or mid 30s, and he's got a lot of debt. Mm-hmm. What do you tell that person? Do you tell him, hey, let's handle the debt side first. Let's come up with a plan to pay that off. and then we'll start investing for your retirement, or do we do a little bit of both?
Yeah, no, I think that you got to get most of the debt off the table, because really, it proves there's no good reason to start, doing other things like investing if you have all this debt hanging over you. And as you guys know, most of the debt that people have is unsecured debt, which also comes with a very high interest rate as well. So, I know there's a lot of different things out there as far as how to pay it down, which to pay down, and so forth. But to me, it's very simple. If you've got a lot of debt, just put it right, Ben Franklin tee it, and put the highest interest rate first all the way down, and start paying off the higher interest rate first, and then just work your way down.
A little debt snowball.
Absolutely.
A little Dave Ramsey method.
Yeah.
Shout out to Dave Ramsey.
There you go.
So there's a statistic out there that 60% of Americans, if an emergency happened that cost over $1,000, they wouldn't be able to cover it. What are your thoughts on emergency funds?
Sure. So I think that goes back to that foundation. That's one of the very key components of the foundation, is to have that emergency fund. And to me, I think you want to shoot for 6 months of expenses. A lot of people get, they may say 6 months is 6 months of income, and kind of what we've just gone through here and we're going through right now. You may look at that and go, 6 months of income. I would have been glad to have had that, or I am glad that I have that, depending upon what your situation is. But really, I think as a worst case scenario, you want to have at least 6 months of expenses. In an emergency, just a pure savings checking account that you can access immediately.
Liquid cash.
Liquid cash.
Liquid cash.
Yes.
Yeah. And then and that makes a lot of sense. I have a question. It's kind of maybe more of a just more of like a fun economics question. Okay. So a lot of folks through this this COVID thing, a lot of folks were awarded these or the government issued the stimulus checks. Basically, if you paid that anyway, I don't all get into all like the details of it, but there's this huge stimulus. Now, if you didn't need that money for food and groceries and paying your bills, right, which I know a lot of people did, is it better for the economy for me to spend that on stuff or for me to save it?
Well, so you guys probably have recently seen, personal savings are through the roof. So what everybody did, is they took that money and they put it into their savings account, right? So from a personal standpoint, it's kind of like, give me some, attaboy, good job. You put this money away. From an economical standpoint, from a government standpoint, they're like, go spend that money. That's why we gave you that money.
But let me ask you this: like having, and again, here's where just as my novice economic knowledge, because I think, hey, if you invest or save, you're helping somebody that works for a bank or an investment company or is in that industry. You're helping them stay employed. I mean, again, I don't like to vilify companies because companies employ people, right? And people need jobs. People want to work. But you're saying maybe for an immediate stimulus, it would to go and purchase goods.
Correct.
From
I think some killer gear. But I mean,
killer gear.
We talked a little bit about, hey, maybe give some of that, maybe save some of that, and maybe go spend some of it, right? I mean, I think that's a good balanced methodology.
Right, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, good deal. What's your favorite thing about your job?
Favorite thing, the people, without a doubt. I mean, that is the coolest thing that I get to do day in and day out is deal with people. I've always been somewhat of a people person, and I just thoroughly enjoy getting to know someone and their families and getting to know. I truly want to know if your son pitched on Friday night. I really genuinely want to know how he did. If there was a soccer game, Gabby she had a gymnastic meet. I truly want to know how did Gabby do?
Yeah.
You know, did she perform well? I just love and enjoy people, and it's really, you know, I tell people I'm the luckiest person there is, because I get to deal with people that I like each and every day, and I get to be a part of their lives. Obviously, when you know we have situations where the market's not performing well, that makes for different conversations. But at the end of the day, my clients are literally, many of them, my best friends, and people that I never knew, I didn't know anything about. So it's been just a unique field to just get to learn so many different things, and you know, just learn about different companies and what people do. So without a doubt, I'm very, very fortunate to do what I do.
Yeah, well, you get to be that, like, you get to kind of intimately know. I mean, sharing your finances, a lot of dudes would rather go to the doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys don't like to go to the doctor. We're just hitting out of the park. We've got a doctor on last week. We got you on today. Like, all the things that guys don't want to face sometimes. Like you said, like looking under the hood or looking under the sheets. We're going to transition to some killer gear here. But before we do that, if anybody was wanting to get into doing what you're doing, let's say I just graduated. I'm like, man, I want to go help people. I want to do what Jeff does. What would be the path? What advice would you give? Would you give someone who wanted to start in the financial services, financial planning?
Yeah, and great question. So, by the way, not to take anything away from your prior guest, because I did do my homework and I did watch episode 4. For those listening, I actually have a degree in sports medicine.
Awesome.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
What university? Tell us about university.
Oh, it is university. Yeah, it's actually grown. So, you ready?
Yeah.
You can't Google this. Alderson Broaddus University. I know both of you probably have the gear.
Yeah, I do have the gear.
Yeah,
I do have
I'm
the
sure
gear.
you do.
Alderson Broaddus. But they're definitely getting tagged when we publish this,
Absolutely.
this
Absolutely.
podcast, for sure.
AB
What's the
is
mascot?
for short.
What's the mascot?
Battler. So imagine a Civil War figure on top of a horse.
Oh, a battler. Someone who goes to battle. But you said battler.
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 They're the
All
battlers.
Right. Okay. The fighting battlers.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
So degree in sports management.
Yeah, so I always like to tell the story, because I was one of those guys who literally walked across the stage, grabbed my diploma, and went, this is probably not what I was meant to do.
Now what?
Great education. Don't misunderstand me, because if you guys remember back when we went to school, we didn't have the internet, so, you know, AB, Alderson Broaddus University, was one of the few schools that gave me the opportunity to play baseball. So as I'm perusing through the pamphlet of what can you study at this school, I was like, I like sports medicine. That's me. Sign me up. And so it was a tremendous degree. I'm very glad that I went through it, because for the time of where I was in my life, it just was a good fit.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoyed sports and learning about everything that goes with the body and treating the body. So, but again, I walked across the stage and knew that was not going to be my long-term goal. So, I basically, as I kind of floundered for a few years, I was working on my master's in healthcare administration. I was doing some personal training. I was working at a local YMCA. Literally, a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, you know, you'd make a great stockbroker." Really? I didn't know that.
Did you even know what that was? You're like,
I didn't know the difference between a stock and a bond, but he told me I'd be great at it. So I figured, what the heck?
Kind of like Boiler Room. He might have been duping you a little bit. Hey, come work for me.
Did he put you in the farm, the farm with hand you a telephone book and tell you to dial for dollars?
He was smiling from ear to ear. Yeah, I mean, you know, so there's a point to that story, is that in your question, I'm sorry, it's a long way to answer it, but there are many programs out there. So you can literally Google become a financial advisor. And my biggest, you know, suggestion is you want to get with a large, well-known firm that has a really good training program. That's the key, is that you want to be trained well, because regardless of what your degree is, and if you look at many people in my industry, all different degrees. Obviously there's some who have finance and accounting degrees and so forth, but it's a mix. So don't think that you have to have an accounting degree,
right.
or you have to have a finance degree to do what I do. Because if you do get with a good company, they're going to teach you a lot of everything that you need to know, and they're going to show you the ropes.
And if I'm just a regular guy and I don't know and I don't really have a plan yet, how do I go about vetting or finding a good financial planner, and how important is that certified financial planner sort of designation behind the name of the person I choose?
Right. And I think it's an important part of your due diligence. So I think as you're, I always suggest that you should at least interview 2 or 3 financial planners, financial
and you
advisors.
get like 2 or 3 lunches out of that, right?
Absolutely.
Because they're all
that's all part of the deal. So
there you go. Maybe interview 10.
Yeah. But again, you got to remember, if you've had somebody who's taken 15 years to take this little baby step to finally meet with a financial advisor, most of the time they're going to be referred in by somebody. But I think you need to do your due diligence, and you need to, I think the amount of time that someone's been in the financial services industry, and I think even more important is, you want to get references from them to find out, okay, I want to talk to other people that you're working with and find out what you're all about.
Good deal. We appreciate you sharing that with us, and I love the fact that you brought up, go to an organization if you're trying to start in this that has a structure that's going to teach you the good habits.
Yeah.
Just like you're trying to help your clients, say, get into those habits of living on less than you make. Get into those habits of saving for retirement. Get into those habits of giving. Right? I mean,
right.
There's that when you give something that you worked for, there is this fulfillment.
Right.
But I like that, like, establish the habits, have the discipline to stay the course. Don't always get distracted. And cool learning about your baseball background. I didn't know that about you in the sports, and I know you still like to stay active. And it looks like you brought some gear that is really kind of geared towards being active and being outdoors. So Jeff, why don't you tell us what killer gear you brought for us
Absolutely.
today?
So obviously we'll start with the cool factor first. And in my opinion, everybody's got to own a pair of Costas. Yes, they are a little bit pricey, but guess what? 100% guaranteed. I have owned Costas for the last 20 years. I've had this little emblem pop off. I've had the lenses pop out. I've had the nose guards fall off. You literally pack them up, ship them down to the main office, and generally speaking, they'll charge you $6 or whatever the shipping and handling is to ship them back to you. So they take pride in their work. The lenses are awesome. These particular lenses here are glass, but you can get them in the non-glass as well. But just whether you're outdoors at the beach fishing, or just driving.
You like to go out on the boat a lot and fish, and
absolutely.
Those are.
And I concur with everything. I got my wife. Something she taught us when we got married. It took me around as like, go quality and go a higher quality. You're gonna have to replace them less, and they're just better. And I remember, reading something somewhere. It was that, but reading something somewhere about like eye cancer. Like, unless you really get good polarized lenses, I don't mean the crap you're going to buy at the drugstore. I mean really good lenses. I got a pair 11, 12 years ago. I've sent them back like 3 or 4 times.
Sure.
Because I'm like you. I'm outdoors a lot. They're falling, whatever.
Yep.
Replaced every time. I love them that they're local. That's Costa Del Mar, costadelmar.com. See what's out there, I believe, is their tag. Hopefully we can have some of their guys on here sometime. We can get them, maybe get a little sponsorship.
Yeah.
But I concur with that product. I saw when you brought that in, and so I think that's a good job. I love mine too.
You know what piece of killer gear I liked that he brought in? And I didn't know what it was, but this piece of killer gear here, and he's going to have to explain, but I've got my shoes on here, and I'm hoping that's what it's for. Share with us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so this piece of gear right here is not only my favorite, but probably my wife's favorite piece of gear as well, because she was so tired of smelling my stinky shoes, right? and literally, guys, all this is if you've ever done any skiing before, and you come in from the cold and you want to heat up your boots or your gloves, this is what this is. This is actually a boot warmer. However, if you're very active and you sweat a lot, this is like the perfect thing to basically dry your shoes. And it has a little control here. You can go for 60 minutes, 90 minutes, or 2 hours. It sits right in the garage where I take my shoes off. I plop them on there, turn it to an hour, 2 hours, and I leave them there. And the next morning when I get up, I pull them off and they're completely dry. And, one of the things that, as you guys know, and you both are very, very active, is, the shoes will only hold up so long from the stink factor, right?
Yeah.
Eventually you can put all the little things in there, you can spray them, but once you get that stench, it's really hard to get it out of there. And I have found that by just drying them every time after I work out, that they're lasting a lot longer. And even with the kids. So I'll take the girls' soccer cleats, boom, put them on there after they're done with practice or games, dries them right out.
Where do you find one of those?
Yeah, so real easy off of Amazon. And believe it or not, because I knew I was bringing this on the show, this particular model right now I think is going for like $18.
Is that it?
On Amazon.
That was my next question.
Yeah,
What's it going to set me back?
It's like $18.
Okay.
And I've probably had it for about a year now.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah.
We'll check that out. We'll see if we can post a link to this in the show notes. So what else you got over there? I see it.
So this is just total dude stuff, just total cool factor.
Okay.
And really what this truly is a dive knife, right? But to me, it's just cool because most knives have a very pointed edge. But for those of us who live down in Florida, if you're spending any time in the water, this blunt edge really is not so much to be to insert, but if you need to either just make sure somebody's keeping a distance, or if you need to get in and dig something out. That's why it's got the flat head on it.
Okay, and you cut line with that.
You got it, cut line there.
Okay. Do you dive a lot?
I do, yes.
Okay, so you say when you need to
Poking a little fit.
poke like a shark or something?
There you go.
Have you ever had to do that? Just
No,
push it, get out of the way?
No.
And what's the scariest thing you've ever seen underwater? Just being down and...
Okay, so the scariest I have ever seen is definitely a school of barracudas that were actually feeding at the time. Most barracudas want nothing to do with you, right? But it's definitely when you are eye level with a barracuda, the amount of teeth that they have is just absolutely insane. You can't put any more teeth in a mouth than on a barracuda, right? But what happens is that when they're actually feeding, it actually becomes a little bit, I wouldn't say dangerous, but you definitely want to be on your game because they'll start this little bit of a circling effect. You just want to make sure you are not in the middle of that circle at the time, okay? So that was probably, I've seen sharks, I've dove with sharks, stingrays, eels, and that really never bothered me. Because normally, I'm kind of aware of my surroundings when I'm diving, but seeing the barracudas that were in an aggressive manner definitely got my attention.
Yeah, that'll freak you out. So you're no stranger to the water. You're on the water a lot.
Yeah.
What do you got here?
Yeah. So, in my opinion, this is kind of what every dude needs to have either in their vehicle or in their garage. But this, simply put, is just, and especially if you're just going to fish in rivers, you're going to fish in the intercoastal, you're going to fish in ponds. This is it. This is a pin reel. I love pin products. Again, you're going to pay maybe a little bit more for a pin product, but they're going to last. They're going to hold up. But this particular reel and rod, and this is what we considered a light to medium weight. So. Nothing big, but this little guy right here, can easily withstand a 30, 35 pound fish.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not large, doesn't take up a lot of room. And again, you can pretty much utilize this with all type of fishing, especially in the state of Florida.
So freshwater or saltwater?
Absolutely, freshwater or saltwater. And this is probably just I think it's a 7-foot rod here.
Nice. What's your favorite fish to catch? Like the most fun when you get one on, you're like, yes, you get that jazzed up.
So pound for pound, a tarpon.
Mm-hmm.
A tarpon without a doubt will just wear you out, because they are just one strong fish, and they I've never experienced a fish that will just pull the amount of line off of a reel like a tarpon will, and it's just brute force. Sharks, obviously. A lot of fun, but they don't really quite put up the fight like a tarpon will.
I caught an amberjack once, man. That thing put up a huge fight.
Exactly.
A lot of fun to catch, not very
why
good to eat.
why is it all the fish that are crappy eating are the most fun to catch?
Exactly.
So like, I don't want to do that. You're like, you go catch mahi or something, and
That's it.
And
Drop the line.
you're like, oh, these are awesome. They're delicious to eat, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
You catch something like that, or like a marlin.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna eat a marlin, are you?
That's
I mean, maybe you could, but it's so much fun to catch, and then you're like, you don't get to grill it up.
Yeah. So any of your billfish, that's just a thrill. I mean, just catching a billfish, just having a glimpse of a billfish is an amazing experience because it's such a beautiful fish. One, and you're right, you're not going to keep a billfish, but extremely powerful fish. But the next best thing, as far as what's a really cool fish to catch and eat, is going to be a wahoo. All right, so if you're going to be offshore, a wahoo is an amazing fish, very similar to a tarpon inshore as far as the way that they're going to fight and battle you. But the great thing is that you're going to chuck that thing right in the ice.
Nice.
When it gets on,
and you're going to eat it.
Absolutely.
We need to have you on to do a fishing segment for us. Then.
Yeah.
Resident angler.
There you go.
Resident angler.
We'll have to do an offsite on the boat, have them take
Definitely.
us fishing, and we can come back.
Yeah,
have
I'm
them
totally
back
cool
on.
with that. What do you throw all this gear on when you're going to go jump on the
Yeah,
boat?
so to me, whether I'm on the boat, let's see if I can get it off here, going to the beach, whatever, is going to be this dry bag. I mean, to me, if you're going to be anywhere near the water, you need a dry bag. And literally, this is one of the coolest purchases I've ever made. I've had this thing forever, but you know, if you're going out on the water, you're going to be near water. You can throw the phones in there. You know, you can throw the headphones in there. Anything that you want to keep dry, you can put in this bag, and it's so cool because it essentially just rolls down like this, snaps, and you're done. And this is a backpack that you can use as well. It also floats. So if
and aptly named brand Overboard dry bag, right?
There you go.
So,
there you go. So very, very cool.
Awesome.
And then I brought one last treat for you. Got enough time?
Yeah.
Wait, do if it's a treat.
Oh,
yes,
this is a total treat.
Absolutely.
It's a total treat. So this is going to go back to, and I'll apologize. This is let's segment from episode 4 to I shared with you that I have a undergraduate degree in sports medicine, right?
Correct.
So probably the one thing that I remember from my undergraduate degree and what I always thought was really, really cool was this tuning fork. And I'm going to ask you guys, any idea? I mean, we've got guitars around us here, but anybody want to?
What was a
Take a
tuning
gander.
fork have to do with sports medicine?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
I'll take the bait. I'll take the bait.
You take the bait?
I'll take the bait. Yes,
Right.
I have a feeling I'm about to be made fun of, but go ahead. I'll take
All
the
right.
bait.
So I think every dude should own a tuning fork because if you truly ever want to know if you have broken a bone, this little guy right here will tell you. All right? So I'm going to use you, Brandon, as an example. Let's say, and obviously, do you have anything that you think's broken? No, that'd be kind of cool.
No,
Nothing?
until you hit me with that.
All right. So just put your arm out. All right, and we'll see right there. Let's just pretend that you've fallen,
The arm
you've
this way.
tripped,
There we go.
and you think, "Oh my gosh, I may have broken my arm."
Oh my gosh, I may have broken my arm.
Where's Jeff with his tuning fork? Here it is.
Oh, there he is.
Are you ready? So the way this works, guys, is that because this tuning fork when it vibrates, it puts off such a high frequency. Once I put that onto this bone, if it's truly broken, it's going to create a vibration like you've never felt before. And if your bone is broken, obviously you're not going to like that.
So you're going to take my broken bone and cause me more pain.
Right. So I just want you to feel, since you don't have a...
Oh, that's pretty cool. You're going to feel this little bite. That is awesome.
Yeah,
that
right?
is awesome.
Here you go.
I'll give you
again.
good. Yeah. Oh, that's totally cool.
So imagine
for those of us that are just listening, for those folks that are just listening, he's just hitting the tuning fork on a hard surface on the table, and then holding the single end to my bone, and you can feel it. It's like you can feel the vibrations. So I can imagine if that was broken, that would hurt like hell.
So imagine.
Yeah.
So imagine if you want to.
Yeah, sure.
Chris, all right. Let's see. Let's go. Yeah, we'll.
Like a skull or something.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll put it right here.
Wow. Man, that's weird.
Yeah, you feel it go up through your...
Yeah, so for all the listeners, it's like a vibration that goes up the arm because he's touching my wrist bone. And, man, I need one of those. I mean, my daughter, bless her heart, has broken her arm 3 times in the last 2 years doing gymnastics and whatnot. And
you want to save it on an urgent care bill? Because obviously, kids are falling all the time, and we use that all the time in our household. It's like, okay, did she break her leg or what? Let's use this first, just to do a little preliminary.
And I kind of think that the gauntlet has been thrown down towards Dr. Danny because he didn't bring anything cool like that. I mean, he kicked a lot of good knowledge and stuff, Jeff, but that's kind of next. That's like Dude Hack.
Yeah.
Can we put that on Dude Hacks?
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to cut this segment and put it on Dude Hacks because that is some good freaking action.
There you go.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
And again, we here at Dudeology Show are part of the movement to empower you guys to continue to make them, yourselves better by just getting after it every single day, right? Today we talked with Jeff Hartman, right? So think about the impact that you can have if you took ownership of your finances, right? And then use that as a tool to make a positive impact in your family, in your community, and society as a whole, right? So in closing, thanks again for coming, Jeff. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Some killer gear you brought, some awesome knowledge on financial services and how dudes can get better at managing their finances, and some great action, right? And so let's make sure just to check out our past episodes and subscribe on the different socials and YouTube, Spotify, and check us out at Dudeology.com. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Dudeology Show, the place for cool stories, killer gear, and awesome stuff. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share on all your socials at Dudeology Show.